have to say I'm kind of excited. I feel like I'm having a tea party with some of my best friends, so, so it's really nice to come together like this. For some who don't know me, I'm Judy. I'm in Halifax, Canada. And this is the third, I think, in this series. And really, it's a tribute to Marcelo, who was inspired by the need, I think, or the feeling that what we really needed in this time was to be able to come together and talk about things that really matter to us. And I know that we have so many Zoom classes, and we've coined it now Zoomdom because it's the other place we live, the other world we all live in. But, it's different to have a class than it is to sit and have a conversation. And I just think it's a rich inspiration, and just thank you to Marcelo and to all of you for coming. And so tonight, our theme, I'll tell you a bit about our theme after I introduce our three beautiful conversation tea party members with me. So I think you can see Moira, and I don't know what's on your screen. I can see gallery. Oh, lovely. That's nice. Thank you. Now I can see Moira very clearly. And we saw the Buenos Aires Center and the Palmares, I think it was, Retreat Center on Sister Mohini's Zoom visit of the Americas the other day, and it's spectacular. And there you are sitting in this beautiful place. So Moira's been with Bubba more than 30 plus years, and is responsible for service in Argentina and oh so much more. What she creates and what she organizes is really, it's the impossible becomes possible when Moira's around. So we have Moira from Argentina with us today. We have Rita in Boston Center. I don't know if we can see Rita now on our screen. I still see Moira, but I'll talk about Rita. So Rita, again, has been with Bubba 30 plus years. And I think we're seeing Rita now. No, I'm not seeing Rita. Maybe it's just me. Is everyone else seeing Rita, or is it just me? Okay, it's just me. All right, I'm not going to do anything to my screen. There she is. Look at her, beautiful Rita. Okay. And Rita's in Boston, the newly, they've just done an amazing new center in Boston. It's taken them a couple of years. And as Rita said the other day, it's the end of the Iron Age when it takes this long to build something. So, and Rita's been living outside of the center, but coordinating the center and responsible for some really high-level VIP service in the Yagya. Because of her own professional work, and interesting taking on the care of a very young child almost the instant she became a Brahmin. So, and at an age where she was past mothering. So she's combined some double mothering, triple mothering if you add the center to her life. So welcome, Rita. Thank you for coming. And over in the UK, I can see Ash sitting at the I know where he's sitting. He can, if he steps a few feet forward, he'll be looking out over the ocean in Worthing. So Ash lives in an apartment near the Worthing Lighthouse Retreat Center, and has been well, he was young once. I met him in the youth retreat, but he's not young anymore. He's wise and mature, Ash, and is a constant server all over the world, and in particular in the Worthing Retreat Center, and has recently stepped away from working to be able to invest himself fully there. So welcome to the three of you, amazing souls, for this afternoon's conversation, and thank you for coming. I read the poster this morning because, in my churnings, I've been in a million directions, but here's technically what we're speaking about. Finding my own place. What is the reason for having a center and gatherings? Is the virtual meeting era finishing the need of our getting together? And how do we foster a sense of belonging at this time? So that was the topic chosen for this conversation. I think because we are finding ourselves on Zoom a lot, Many of us are finding, well, we can't have people here in the center. Even now in the Americas, we're just starting to loosen up. And what does center really represent but a bit of a gathering place for the family? And so there's two parts to this afternoon's conversation. I'd like to explore first a little bit about your own sense of belonging. So we know, center life has kind of been thrown up in the air, at least the physical center, except for those who live in centers that are still, cooking, vogue, and caring, and those that drive to centers to do all of that same thing. But the center, what does it really represent in terms of a sense of belonging? So I'd like to start first with your journey in relation to the center and your sense of belonging there. And then I think the second part, we'll look at, and so now what? What are you discovering now that centers are more virtual? What is in fact our center now? What's changing about our understanding of center? And what part does this play in our lives? So we'll each have a turn to say something, and then we'll talk back and forth. And I'll start with you, Moira, but the first, if you can just share a little bit. I think as Brahmins, we know technically we're Brahmins because we belong to Baba. So the belonging with Baba happened at some point for all of us. In addition to that, belonging to the family. For some of us, that's a longer journey. For some of us, the sense of belonging isn't instantaneous or is challenged in that area. So if you can and that all plays out very much in a center level for many of us, as well as international. But Moira, if you could begin by just telling us a little bit about your sense of belonging, your journey of belonging, especially in relation to the family, and what center has meant for you over all these years.
Thank you, Judy, and great to be with you all. Lovely to see Ash after many years. Ash, I met you there by the beach as well. Well, my journey started in Madhuban. I was backpacking, and I had read a book by Hermann Hesse, and it was talking about an elite of thinkers who lived in a very beautiful place up in the mountains. And the place in that book was called Castalia. And wherever I traveled in the world, I was always looking, where is Castalia? I knew there was a group of wise people that I wanted to meet. And when I went to Mount Abu, after a trek on camels in the desert of Jaisalmer, I felt I had to stop. And I had really no more interest in traveling. And I really felt I needed to rest my mind. So I asked someone in the street in Jodhpur, where can I rest my mind? And I told myself, what this person will tell me, I will do. So he sent me to Mount Abu. He said, in Mount Abu, you can rest your mind. So I took a train and went there. And I met the Brahmins at the Dilwara temple. And they told me I could learn free meditation classes. And they told me about Pandav Bhavan. So I went to Pandav Bhavan, and there were these original pictures of Baba's visions. And so Sister Mani from London kindly came I was with a group of backpackers, and she came to tell us about the knowledge and so on. And whatever she said, I don't know. It was like a back of, some sound at the back, but I was struck by Brahma Baba. And so we went from one picture to the next, and then my friend, she said, okay, you can take meditation lessons. And so I said, I want to teach you for myself. And another one said, I also want to learn. So we had separate classes. And then she took me across the road, and all my friends left. And then she took me all around Pandav Baba, and she even took me to the kitchen. And so I told myself, that is the school, and this is the home. And it touched something within. And then I came For like 3 days, I took some classes, and then Brother Niver met me in the courtyard. And every time I took a class, I didn't want to go. I felt I wanted to stay there. So, but I was a bit embarrassed. I didn't know what to do with myself. So I went and sat by the, on the swing by Baba's hut. And then I sat in Baba's hut. And then I went to Baba's room, but I didn't want to leave the place. And so Nirvai walked out one day out of his office and said, "Are you looking for anyone?" And I said, "Well, I want to find a sister who sat by me on the swing." Her name was Heather. And so he gave me his laser beam drishti and said, "Is there anything in Abu that interests you?" And I said, "Well, not really. This Abu is not very attractive. I just want to know where I can stay to come to your classes." And so he went to talk to Shashi. When he came back, he said, "You go and speak to Shashi Ben." I didn't know who she was. "And she'll tell you what to do." So when I went to her office, she said, "You bring your backpack and I will tell you where you have to stay." But at that moment, I felt that I had reached home. And I remember telling myself, this is Castalia and these are the wise people, but I am one of them. I was so fascinated. I went to a place, I can't tell you where I lived. I was like renting a little hut on the mountain with my friends. And so I went to get my backpack and stayed there. And then Shashi Ben said, "Okay, now when you come and stay here, and then you go back home and you serve your family." And I said, "Well, okay, let me see. I'll see what I do later." But I had the feeling that I had reached the place I had so longed for. And then when I met, they told me there's this Daddy Janki you should meet. So I said, okay. So they took me after Murli, because the next day I went to the Murli. So they took me to Daddy, and I was in locket clothes. So Daddy said, "Would you like to dress in white?" And I said, "Well, I'm getting some whites, but these tailors lie to me every day I go, it's not ready." And so she said, "Okay, we'll give you all the whites you want." And she said, "What are you going to do with your life?" She asked me 1,000 questions. And the moment I saw her, I saw this little lady sitting on a rattan chair with her feet on another chair. And I just thought I could trust her. And so she started asking me so many details about my life, my family, my background. And I just thought that I could just trust her. And when she asked me, "What are you going to do with your life?" I said, "Whatever you tell me." And so she said, "Okay, Daddy will send a plan for you." So this was how and after that, I just felt that, this is where I belong. So I stayed and the story goes on. I came back to London, I spent some time there, then joined in Argentina. But the moment I had that feeling, I just dropped my backpack and I said, "This is it." And when I came back to Argentina, I really felt, I was so happy to find a center there. So I joined the family there, and I think I recognized the family before I recognized Baba. And it became so important to have the company of the Brahmins wherever I went. So for me, this aspect of belonging has been, I have always been a family person anyway, but this Brahmin life has meant so much to me in terms of friendship, companionship, doing things together. And 1 year after I reached Argentina, actually, not yet a year, a bit less, Daddy came. So then I went to live to the center, and I realized that I was not interested in anything else. And the center just became my home so naturally. So I've lived for more than 30 years in a center. And I just feel it's the home of all the seekers that have come and have found a place in the heart of a family, in Baba's heart, a place where to learn, a place to serve. And although people are not coming to the center now, it's just an energy that is concentrated energy that is holding it all. So we read the Murli from our center, every day, and we see many more people connecting than they used to before when they could even come. So I see that the center means a lot more than just a place. It's the meeting. It's the love. It's just we just belong there. So I don't think we can do anything else. Well, I don't want to. I'll stop there. But I don't know how long it should be.
Thank you, Moira. That's great. I didn't know that about you. Family first. And then but that sense of belonging for you is immediate with family and has stayed all the way through your Brahmin life. So the center is the place to meet and greet and be together. And here we are on Zoom doing that same thing. So we're sort of answering our own question in the actions that we're participating in right now. Thank you, Moira. Let's ask for Rita. Rita, would you share a little bit about what sense of belonging, how that all came about for you?
Okay. So my story is a little bit different from Moira in that I had been actually seeking and trying to find God probably from the time that I was a very little child. And there was a group of people that I used to get together with. There were a group of 6 of us. Most of them were professors from different universities. And we used to get together probably 3 or 4 times a year to discuss where we were in our spiritual journeys and what questions we were holding about our next steps in trying to move forward. And so at one of those meetings, I asked the question, I said, the question that I'm in right now is I want to try to understand what's going on, not just what's going on, but what is the link between what is going on in my inner world and what effect or what relationship does that have to what's happening in the outer world? And, they all looked at me and we all looked at each other and we all took each other's questions and then we sort of separated. And then one day I got a call from one of the people who was part of that group. Some of you may know him. His Brother Ed from Peace Village, who at that time was not Brother Ed. He was Ed Wondolowski from Bentley College. And so Ed called me and he said, Rita, he said, I've just come back from a trip to India. And he said, and I think I've met the people who have your answer. I said, really? He said, yeah. So he said, can I bring them? Can I come tomorrow? So next day they came, the doorbell rang, and I opened the door, and here's this little sister, Sister Sharona, who's standing there, and she comes into the house, and the first thing she said to me, she said, she walked in, and she walked in like a king, I was sort of observing, and she said, there's a very interesting vortex of energy that's here in this house. And I looked at her and I said, yes, I said, I know that, because I felt in the moment that she was picking up the spiritual dimension of the house, because I had been praying and the house was full of godly love from me at that point. So that's what I felt she must be picking up. But anyway, as she began to explain to me just a little bit about the teachings of the Brahma Kumaris, and she began to speak of it as an energetic paradigm that we were souls and that God was energy. I just knew almost in a second that there was something here where I was really going to find everything that I had been looking for. So because of the work that I was involved with, I was immediately invited into some service projects. They were working on global cooperation for a better world at that point in time. So I never actually went to take the lessons. But in our in the service programs that I was involved with, they would pick me up, and all the way to the program, Shimona would be talking about lesson 1, lesson 2. You know, so I sort of got them, but not formally at all. And the more I heard, the more I related to Baba, to God, as light. And I mean, I knew it from the moment it was mentioned, because I had also studied another spiritual study where they taught about the energy of the 5 elements and how the natural laws of energy applied to the universe could give you a lot of answers regarding the physical. But when she gave me the model of the soul, I recognized that that was the 6th element in the place that I was going to get the final answer to put it all together. So then what happened is I actually was invited to come to Madhaban in February of 1990. And when I arrived in Madhaban, one of the first people that I met as I walked into the courtyard and through the courtyard over to the Tower of Peace was Dadi Jampi. She came walking, and Sharona took me to her and introduced me to Dadi. And what Dadi looked at me and she said, Rita, she said, "Are you a BK?" And I sort of looked at her. I was stunned, you know, because I didn't know how to answer that. You know, I didn't know how to answer it. And I said to her, I said, "Well, I don't know, Dottie." I said, "I don't know." I said, "Am I a BK?" You know, tell me. Because I didn't know enough about the whole of the organization to actually answer that properly. And she said, and she just looked at me and she said, "How many times have you been here?" I said, "Oh, this is my first trip." And she went, and I looked at her, I had no idea what she meant. And then she asked me again, "Are you a BK?" And I said, "Well, I really don't know." And then she sort of gave one of those looks, you know, Dottie, you know, just go. And she walked away from me. And I said to myself, I wonder what she meant by that. You know, what does it mean to be a BK? I thought, well, if I'm a BK, somebody's going to tell me I'm a BK. I don't know if I'm a BK. I came back the second year. And I won't tell, I mean, I had an incredible meeting where that year that I was in Madhaban before I move on, where I actually had, it was Shivratri, and at the end of the meeting, I was invited to come to the foot of the stage in Om Shanti Bhavan, and that was the first time I held the hand of Baba, you know, and I had an absolutely profound experience of Shiv Baba's love. And to the point that I felt my heart, I thought I was going to implode. I didn't, I have no idea how long it lasted. For me, it was forever. But the injection of that experience, was something that then carried me for the next 20 years of nonstop service. I couldn't stop from that moment on. But in that second, that feeling of knowing I had come home and that I was in the company of the one that I had been searching and searching for, and the stillness inside myself as a result of finding that was beyond anything I could have imagined, But I went, you know, I went back home afterward, and everybody said, "So what happened?" And I said, "Well, the weather was really nice." You know, I didn't know how to explain what happened because I was like, "Oh my gosh," you know. But then, you know, I went back the next year, and I go into the courtyard, and here comes Dottie again. You know, boom, 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 boom. Om Shanti, Rita, Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Dadi. She said, "You BK, Rita?" And I said, "I don't know, Dadi." I said, "Tell me, am I a BK?" And she says, "How many times have you been here?" I said, "Oh, this is my second trip." And she goes, 3. And I said, "Oh man, you know, I don't understand why she doesn't understand. This is my second trip here." You know? And it wasn't until the third year when I went back, she asked me the same question. And when I could finally answer and say, yes, Daddy, I'm a BK. And then she just went, yeah, she goes like this, you know, she moved me on. So that was my my way in. But what was very interesting is when I came back after the first trip, 1990, and I thought, oh my gosh, you know, I was married 5 years at the time, and so fairly new marriage, and you know, Rita had, and it was a second marriage, so between us we had 4 children, and then all of a sudden there was a situation that I was to inherit a granddaughter that we were going to end up having either to, the choice was that she was either going to go somewhere else or we would keep her. And it took a second, you know, for us to make a decision that, you know, she was our family and we would keep her. And I thought, oh no, not now. You know, how could this be? I'm finding God. I know this Brahmin family is the family that I'm going to be with, and what is happening here? What I didn't know at that moment was that I had a role to play that was going to require me to stay in the household. And what was so interesting is the very first Murli that I ever heard, in the Murli, what Baba said was, this is the time when the impossible becomes possible. You can stay in your household, you can stay in the world, which meant my business, and you can do this. And, you know, in the moment when it was the decision that Anna was going to be with us, you know, those words of that Murli played so loudly in my head. And I said to Baba, Baba, if you say that this is possible, then I know I belong here. And that's how it all began.
Wow, that's beautiful, Rita. Thank you for sharing that. How old's Anna now?
She's 30.
30, the granddaughter. And so she grew up in your Brahmin growing up. You were growing up as a spiritual student, and she was growing up as a person.
And she was my greatest teacher. She was my greatest teacher. One time, just let me share something very quickly. One time, I was, you know, serving all day and trying to get her ready in the evening to get her to bed and everything. And she was the lightest child, never cried. And one evening, it was the end of the night, and she was a chatterbox. She never stopped talking. And I said, Anna, will you please be quiet? No, I said, Anna, will you please shut up? Which was really wrong. I shouldn't have said that, but that's what I said. And this is what she did. She was laying down in bed. She sits up in the bed. She goes, ah, Nana. She said, you can't talk to me like that. You're a BK. She became my greatest teacher.
That's wonderful. Your conscience.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you, Rita. So a very different story than Moira's. Isn't this great how we get the diversity here, right? So Moira living in the center her entire Brahmin life, and you, opposite of that, living out your entire Brahmin life and with the care of a young child growing up and with a business. Very different. Ash, tell us a bit about your experience with belonging.
Sure. Firstly, I just wanted to say I really appreciated listening to Moira and Rita's stories. It actually just reminded me of when I started coming back later on in my journey, how pivotal that was, just in terms of listening to other people's stories and how that created inspiration inside of me. And it was just really mesmerizing. My journey with Baba started very young. And I was probably 2 or 3 years old when Mum used to take me to the center, and she'd be listening to the Murli and rocking me at the same time. Can you hear me okay?
Better like that, better? Ash. Yeah, okay, thank you. Fine. Yeah.
And so that was the early days of everyone in my family taking their own step into this knowledge, and everyone came at their own time. I learned that much later on, obviously, but it was nice just to be involved in a family environment that were all transitioning to this lifestyle at their own time, but actually created that feeling of being a Brahmin at home for us children. And so that was a very natural introduction into this aspect of family. And because I was raised in Kenya, I was born in the UK. I was the only person in my family that was born in the UK, but I was raised in Kenya. So interesting karma there in terms of my previous birth. And when I came to, when we were growing up, the center was very much a big part of our life in terms of just going there regularly. And there was always a pull to be at the center. You know, the sister at the center would get Gopi and I to conduct meditation. And back in those days, there were some seriously long bhaktis. and I remember a time when Gopi was the sensible one, when she was sat on the gaddi on the left and I was sat on the right. And it was a really long meditation that we had to conduct. And she obviously put her feet, because you had to sit cross-legged on the gaddi. And when we put our feet down, she obviously waited. I couldn't feel my feet, but I thought, I can brave this. And I got up and I fell flat on my face. But there was nobody laughed. Everyone just picked me up. But it's just a lovely memory to remember. And so I think just being part of the family there, and it was a very close-knit family. It was a small family, but they were the seeds and the foundations of service in Kenya. So to be part of that family, some of my greatest memories were playing with other children and having picnics. And I loved picnics. I mean, picnics were just everything for me as a child growing up. And you know, we would always go away. We'd always find time to go away to some cottages, and there'd be the center sisters, there'd be all the students there. And it was just a lovely community environment where there was just a connection with the principles and the disciplines of Murli and yoga, but then this just natural family sharing time where everyone just got on with one another and just one big family. And so there was so much love in that in that family feeling. And I've got to say, you know, Vedanti Ben was such a key instrument in establishing that feeling of family. She just made you belong straight away. You know, she'd meet you for the first time, but she's the sort of soul that can just make you feel like you belong to her. And our whole family just felt so connected to the Yagirans and to the Brahmin family in Africa. And then we had our first trip to Madhubang, and that was a really interesting experience. It was a very long experience. We had, you know, there's 12 of us, you know, venturing. There's about 15 massive suitcases, and there's buses, trains. So it was an epic mission to get to Madhubang. But when we were in Madhubang, it was such a lovely, I remember really fond memories of just being there as a child and just running down the courtyard. I had this brother that I would spend a lot of time with, and he would teach me how to juggle. And it was just I could explore any part of Madhubang. It was just lovely just to be there as a child. There wasn't much interest in what else was going on. I remember back in those days, there were really long meetings, and you know, we'd be falling asleep and mum and dad would have to pick us up and take us back into the room so we could sleep in the dormitories. But we just adjusted, you know, we were happy. It was just lovely to be in that family environment. And so growing up in knowledge and being connected to the Yagira, you know, at that level it just felt very integrated in my life. You know, we were very close to the Dadis, very close to the centers in India and in certainly Madhubang and Kenya as well. And then there was a big turning point in my life, and that turning point came particularly when we moved to the UK. So there was a point when mum and dad came, they visited the UK, and they felt actually it's time to transition, just to expose the kids to further education there. And so going to the UK was a real eye-opener for me, because I went from an environment that was cocooned in love and being in a family environment to, you know, a smaller place, but that was different. You know, I just didn't connect with what I felt was my sense of belonging, and that was love. You know, as a young Kumar, you know, that's all I needed. You put an arm around me and I belong. And that was really, really important to me. So when I didn't experience that feeling, I just naturally didn't want to be around the center. And also as a young person transitioning to a different lifestyle and culture in the UK, there were massive influences for me that I had to initially wrestle. And I found myself tormented with the truth of what Bob was saying, but actually I'm not feeling myself to be connected with it. And I found a recent diary that I used to write when I was going through that period. And my God, I even amazed myself in terms of how I was actually reflecting on what Baba was saying and trying to make sense of this new world for myself. And I think naturally I just stopped resisting and I just went with the flow and started enjoying the experience of being on the other side, you know, and not necessarily being connected to the idea in that way. And so that was a breath of fresh air for me, because I could just do what I wanted. I started enjoying Kalyuki lifestyle to the extreme. I loved it, absolutely loved it and enjoyed it. And at the same time, you know, at that point, Gopi had made a decision to surrender at the center, and this was when she was 18. And I thought she'd gone mad, because in our world, it was, back in those days, the decision was really simple. If you're a Kumar, then it's surrender, and if you're a Kumar, it's definitely surrender. And also growing up in that time in Gyan, it was Baba says and we do. You know, that there was no other questioning, there was no kind of understanding what's going on in your own world. It was just militant. And I found that quite difficult, if I'm honest with you. I really struggled with that, because there were certain emotions and feelings that were taking place internally as I was trying to make sense of life that just didn't quite equate in terms of what I should be. And that actually pushed me further away, if I'm honest with you. And then there was one really interesting period where Mum and Dad kind of forced me to come to Motherburn, and I just didn't want to go. I was, you know, it's the last place in the world I wanted to be. But it was more for the respect of the seniors that were calling me, that I had to be there. And they, you know, turned up and there was a lovely white kurta for me, and I was like, oh my God, I cannot wear this. I feel like a total fraud. It's impossible. This is not me. And so they forced me to wear this. They forced me to meet the daddies. They forced me to do everything, and I did it. And then there was one moment where there was a particular meeting, and I didn't know this was all orchestrated. It was in Daddy's cottage in Gyansorova, and the Dandy Ben just happened to be there as well. And so everyone was meeting in that courtyard in the garden at the back, and I was just sat there thinking, what is going on here? Something's not quite right here. And Vedanti Ben kind of turned up, and they started questioning me on my life and what do I want to do in my life. And I was kind of 19 then, you know. It's like I hadn't figured stuff out for myself. I didn't know what I wanted to do in my life. What I did know is I definitely didn't want to surrender. That's for sure, because I just wasn't ready for that. So I was terrified of that track, if that makes sense. And Vedadi Ben, I think they thought I wanted to get married. I think back in those days, it was very clear that if you're not going to surrender, then you definitely must want to get married. I never had that feeling for myself at all. And then, you know, they would quiz me. They would be like, so have you got a girlfriend? Do you want to get married? If that's what you want to do, you know, that's not quite right. All of that kind of stuff, because they too were learning about how to adjust this lifestyle. And I was so angry, I could tell you, for having that meeting. So on the way home, as we were driving, I was fuming internally. And when we got home, I was really cross with them. And that's when I probably made a decision to leave home and, and move further away, if anything, because I just didn't want to be forced to do anything that I didn't want to do. And I wouldn't listen. So I was definitely the rebel in the family for sure. And then I started kind of going to GRC and meeting Gopi. There was a period where me and her just wouldn't speak, but you know, we just started connecting at some level, and I felt really connected to just be myself at the Global Retreat Center and just hang out there, and I just started listening to people's experiences, and I loved it. I was asking everyone I met, I was like, how did you come to Baba? That's the first question I would ask them, and they would go into this story, and I would just listen and just enjoy. So those were really kind of the initial seeds for me to start coming back. And then it was very natural. I just started feeling internally that actually something deeper. I want to reconnect with Baba here. As a child, Baba was always with me. I felt that. I would have remembrance of him before I went to bed. There was, sorry, thank you, Marcella. I will speak slowly and a bit more clearly. And I never felt like I left Baba. I never felt like I left Baba. What I did feel was the distance that it had created because I'd made certain choices. But I needed that life experience to really come back on my own terms. And when I did come back, eventually on my own terms, I said to myself, I'm going to be very real here. So I won't wear white until I really feel like I need to wear white. And that was going against the grain. And I said, I will also express myself the way I feel. And that was definitely going against the grain, but I had to do that for my own self. And then slowly and slowly, I started coming. And Daddy played a pivotal role in that period for me, because she started to see something inside of me, and I never really believed in myself at all. But she was the one who saw potential in me. And it's decades later that I can. It's almost 2 decades later that I can really begin to see what she saw in me. That it's taken that long to really understand some of the early words that she'd said to me. And she also said to me that I had a connection with her, but I didn't use it. And so she would make me write to her on a monthly basis. And once I cried and I cried, I wrote such a long letter to her. I had so many tears. And when I went to see her, you know, she said, she slapped me on the face, you know, in a lovely kind of way. And she said, Baba's going to take your tears and turn them into diamonds. And that for me, just, that's all I needed to hear after that. And yeah, the journey started and became more and more serious. And more anyway, I'll stop there. I think I could go on. I don't know where all this came from.
Ash, that is so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that part of your story. It sounds like you know, the aspect of honesty, that you had to do it honestly, and you had to be honest with others and with yourself all the way through, in a way, was the thread of purity that kept you connected, wasn't it? Yeah. But also that I just need someone to put their arm around me and I'm in. And you know, that wasn't happening. You know, how much your journey of belonging was just natural, playful, family, be together, enjoy, integrating in life. And then you encountered a model that was, I don't know, maybe a little more business-like, maybe a little bit more organizational. And somehow it just didn't fit this lovely, natural beating heart that was used to going to the beach and on picnics. So, and you know, I'm sure that you're not alone in this, and I know you know that, having gathered stories over the decades of others and what their journey has been like. But I think the honesty of staying true to your own journey, because belonging has got to have a lot to do with my own journey. Listening to Moira, who has this myth of Castalla, or lovely, you know, and falling into her myth, and it just fit perfectly, you know. And Rita with these professional and personal inquiry, you know, these questions that met answers, you know, and poof, done deal, you know. And you starting with this natural lifestyle and then having to face something that didn't feel natural, and then having to find your way into making it. I don't know, how did you make it? Does it feel natural now?
Completely.
Completely. How did that happen?
Firstly, I would say I was envious of souls like Rita and Moira, because that wow feeling of, you know, of before and after, I don't think I've really ever had that, because I've been raised in this way of life, and I've had to work on deepening that connection with Baba in a different way, perhaps. And Baba's shown me a lot about the experiences that I've had to go through, and it's been a wrestle. And I can tell you, there's some strong scars in this one that have taken a while just to really get to grips with. And I can probably characterize my journey, certainly in the early part, as the one trying to run away but just couldn't get away. If that makes sense. Yeah. Because somehow he just would not let me go. And in the end, I just stopped resisting, and I said, okay, I've got my arms out. And W was a big part of it. But I think you touched on something that plays a big part in my life, which is this topic of honesty and really kind of revealing myself as I am to Baba. And I feel that's probably been pivotal in this connection with Baba, really, in terms of, you know, kind of having fighting matches with him, writing every evening for 5 years exactly how I felt, to the nth degree, like stuff you would not even want to hear, but I would write that to Baba. And I felt, I didn't realize the impact that would have, but I felt that has progressed me on this path, and, you know, created a connection that I can trust with Baba, for sure.
Wow, Ash, I'm going to ask Moira and Rita what they're hearing as you speak. And we're going to have to figure out what to do with the microphone, because it is not it's not so easy for people to hear. Okay. So it makes it hard to translate. So maybe hold it if you can. But Moira and Rita, what are you hearing in these stories about, you know, belonging? And I'm going to connect it also to finding your place, because each of us finds our place in a different way. And I think it's a parallel journey to our sense of belonging, because each of us will find our place and therefore our sense of belonging. I think they go hand in hand. What are you hearing, Moira, in the three stories that's relevant for us at this point in terms of creating a sense of belonging? What are the ingredients there that you're hearing?
Well, I think that first of all, being very true to yourself and listening to your own heart. And what I liked about Ash's story is how you were able to respect and honor the rhythm, your own personal rhythm. And even when you went to Madhuban and you were obliged to do everything, the fact that you came back and you just stood up for what you felt. And I think this is something which is so important, because in Brahmin life, we can get lost in trying to be someone else or trying to fit into a pattern and a model of, you know, being the Paka Brahmin. So what does that mean to each one of us? And I remember when I was saying this, it reminds me of my Brahmin childhood, when I always admired Sister Genti a lot, and I used to identify a lot with her rhythm, and I thought, I want to be like Sister Genti. And I think that, you know, like, we all go through this. We have some idol within the Brahmin family, and then we have to, in a way, destroy that idol and just be ourselves. And and the beautiful one each one of us is. So I think that this total honesty is a pillar to our progress, and also finding, you know, when I see Rita's story, I was very lucky to go to Rita's place, her home, and it's very beautiful to see someone who is running a center and who is living at home with her very lovely husband, and with Anna's story, but now Anna's gone, but like a center, she has made this, her home, such a holy place. And so what is my place is what we create with our vibrations, with our feelings, with our thoughts, our power of intention. And now we are seeing this more and more because people can't come to us. So what is happening for you in your mind, what's happening in your heart is really your place. That's where reality is being created. And I am creating that. So this is my space. And it's a magical space. I personally right now feel that I've managed to move away. Like in the past few years, I was interested in news and things happening because we had many friends in the previous government. So I was kind of, you know, looking at what these people were doing, keeping track with them because I kept meeting them as well. And so I was hooked into this external world. And now I feel that I am always in my space. And it's a space of my priorities, but it's a paradox because on one hand I've let go of I don't read news hardly at all, every now and then, but I've kind of, you know, come off the hook of that attraction and that distraction. And on the other hand, my world has become so much bigger. And I think this unlimited aspect of our lives has become alive. So this inner space that each one of us creates for ourselves. And well, I just like this aspect of being with myself and redefining that again and again, to focus more and more. Every time I listen to Mohini Ben's classes at night, I feel I have to narrow, you know, my focus has to become more acute. And so it's like it's like something is becoming smaller and yet it's becoming bigger, huge, beautiful.
Beautiful, Moira. It's like we're going through the wormhole, and this COVID is like the chrysalis somehow, you know, and we're going to come out the other side bigger. But what a lovely description. Thank you for that. Like, to describe finding my place, that journey going from wanting to be like Sister Janty to discovering, oh, I'm not that, I'm something else. And then discovering that, well, actually my place is what I'm creating and around me and in me. What a beautiful description of finding my place. It's lovely. Thank you. Rita, what are you hearing from the previous, all those comments we've had so far?
Well, I just appreciate hearing the stories. You know, it moves me, you know, in so many ways. And, you know, what I was thinking is how Baba talks about how each one of us have a specialty, and that, you know, the way we are called to Baba, you know, we receive the call, and then each one we have the opportunity to step in and to use that specialty. And, you know, and we don't recognize that those specialties are used sometimes, you know, to help us, ourselves, you know, to be able to step into our truth, to step into the call. Baba, to come. And, I was thinking, and, as you spoke about your journey of, being here and then questioning and leaving and coming back, and, being able to have such honesty with yourself, and that practice of writing every single day for, how long did you say you did that? So long. To really get the clarity of who am I, and how am I being in my life? That is amazing. To think that you were able to write to Baba every night about what had gone on for you, and how that contributed to the strength and the power that you had for that self-realization that brought you back. And with Moira, thinking about how, the gift of exploring, of being out and about, and actually searching in the world for knowing that you were trying to find those who had the wisdom, and recognizing that you were one of them in the very beginning of your journey. That to me is absolutely amazing. When I came, I was sort of on a bit of a battlefield, in that, even though Baba had said that the impossible was possible, I couldn't imagine how I could do this, because it was really challenging, because it wasn't like my family was stepping into it either. So I was the Lokic family was not stepping into it. And then how do I build the relationship with the BK family, while trying to keep a balance, that I wasn't causing sorrow for those that were in the Lokic family. And yet my heart was pulling me in, and I always wanted to be, I said, oh my God, I can't imagine how simple it is if I could just be single and surrendered. That would be it.
The opposite of what Ash wanted.
And I yearned. Oh my gosh, and how easy it would be. Well, of course we come to know that that's not true. But I used to say to Dadi Jackie, I said, Dadi, I know this is truth. I have not one doubt that I have found Sheikh Baba. I have not one doubt. I have no doubt about the knowledge that Baba has given. I said, every single word he said, I accept. I had no question. I said, but I don't know how I'm going to do this. I said, I don't know how to do it. I don't know how. And what she said to me, and I've never forgotten this, she said to me, Rita, she said, whatever you do, don't force anything. Let it all be natural. And so step by step, I just was myself. And, I learned to accept that my role was going to be different. And I never dreamt in a million years that I would be asked to come and help with the center. But I would go to the center whenever I could. And I was involved in so much of a lot of the different VIP programs that I could work on from home, which was wonderful. And then I could also bring the VIPs that I was working with, which was another thing that happened all naturally. I didn't have to create more confusion in my life in that way. And so, these aspects of understanding that Baba needs all of us. When the baby came, I said, oh, that's it. Now, all right, so now I've come this far, I've accepted it. And what is this child doing here? What am I going to do now? How do I have my Brahmin life? And what I recognized in the moment, I said, there's no way I can miss the Murli. What am I going to do? So if you can believe, in 1990, when there was no cell phone, there was nothing, I called Sister Mohini and I said, Sister Mohini, you have got to let me put a telephone into the center right next to the Gadi so that I can hear the Murli every day, because I can't get there and I've got to hear the Murli. and that no one in the family had ever done that, who, I mean, look at I took my right, I guess. I don't know what I did, because I'm usually very quiet, very shy. I need the phone. And I said, I promise, I said, we'll put a doily over it and you will not hit, no one will ever know I'm on the other end. You've got to let me do this. And she said, okay, no problem.
And what did they call you, Rita?
Oh, they called me the soul in the box.
The soul in the box. Because you were on the phone long before we had Zoom.
Exactly.
And you were listening to the Merle from home.
Yes, I was.
Wasn't it? And then we've been through a period now where it's almost as if, all of our energy, we used to talk about how, oh, but people can listen now on, on Skype, or they can listen on, and that was considered, for lack of a better word, a bad thing. Right? And now here we are. So you started it, Rita, there in Boston 20 years ago. And now here we are. We're all on Zoom.
Yeah.
But we went through, and what I think all of you are discovering, that we have double, triple the people in Morning Merle class now that Zoom's here. And we're all together in almost a stronger community than ever before, because we're with each other every day, because everyone comes when it's on. It's easier to access now in so many ways.
Well, just one thing I'd like to say is that, about the center. I mean, I really do believe that the center is here, that no matter what, we have our center. But the collective practice and the collective studying, we need to be with family on that. That's not something that you can do on your own. We need the spiritual friendship. We need the fun. We need that. We need the family in order to be able to sustain our experience with Baba. So what I have found is that here I am. It's 30 years later, actually, and I feel as much a part of the family as someone, I think, who has lived in the center. I mean, I can't say that because I'm not that person, but I feel a belonging. I feel an acceptance. And I went through times when some people, some things weren't so easy. I wasn't that accepted because I was so different in the way that I was approaching it. But the majority, the love, the acceptance of having someone who was having to do it a different way, and especially the seniors, they embraced. They didn't have me separate. So, and I think now that we have to recognize in the time that we're living in, that there's a lot of people who may have to do things a little bit differently, a lot of souls who may have to do things differently. And the question is do we have the capacity to love unconditionally and accept unconditionally without putting our judgments of what life looks like? Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Very good point. And the common thread in all of your stories is acceptance, so being able to accept yourself honestly and your journey as unique and distinct to you, but then that feeling of being accepted by others is what has made such a strong sense of belonging for each of you. And so doing that now, I guess, for others. And so can you all speak, and maybe we'll start with Ash because you haven't spoken yet. And at the same time, anyone with a question, just now is your time. We have a half hour left to the conversation. So if you want to just type it in the chat box, and between Marcelo and I, we will see them come up and we'll grab whatever ones we can, or we'll combine them to the best of our ability. And we don't promise to get them all, but at least now's your chance. But what does this mean for us now? Can we speak a little bit more about now what this COVID is doing in terms of center life, and how this is, in a way, positioning us so beautifully for the final chapter of unity, which is the final chapter of the Yajna, and how the sense of belonging and the center somehow connect at this time. So Ash, what are you seeing in this time we're going through now that we're all on Zoom?
Firstly, I just wanted to do a sound check again, just to make sure you can hear me, because there was a setting that was inaccurate on my laptop.
Excellent.
Brilliant. Okay, good. I think this period's been absolutely amazing in terms of just something we've had to just be dropped into, where we're naturally just working remotely and starting to use technology to reach out and connect as a global family. I found it so exciting to be a part of so many things and to be connecting at a global level. So the value I've seen in being this global community online has been phenomenal. There's been more sustenance for BKs than ever before on a global scale, and the opportunities to serve and be connected and to do different things, and the newness has been really welcome. And I really like this point that Rita mentioned, that the center is here, because initially I had the feeling that, you know, I won't necessarily be able to go to Lighthouse or to GCH in London. And you know, that was my world, you know, traveling around and being at these places and being of value in that way. But very quickly things changed. And one thing I've recognized is that this space here is a center for me. You know, it's, you know, I follow the principles of a center here. It's clean to the nth degree. And actually, I've done a lot of inner work here. And I've been through seismic shifts in this lovely environment that I've called a sanctuary, and that I've treated like it's not my home, but it's Baba's home. And I felt that energy working for me, because when it's my flat, then I become careless. I become a householder, and with that comes the carelessness of leading a householder life. But when I'm a trustee and this is Baba's home, and I treat it that way with that respect, you know, I love offering Borg on Thursdays, and that feeling of being in a center is naturally present here. I serve from here. And so all of the qualities that I experience in a center are here. And I also agree with this aspect of, we have to be with the family. We can't be away from the family, because it is only with the family can we appreciate others, see the specialities and qualities of their journey, but also experience the challenge. And I feel genuinely for myself, with all my heart, the people closest to me are the ones that will reveal the most about me. And so world service for me starts with the people closest to me, and trying to reconcile the differences in that space so that I'm better able to serve further out. You know, I went through a phase where I felt I can probably avoid the people closer to me, but still serve Baba, but it doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
We all try it, right? But and I think this COVID period for me has really shown me that my heart and the mirror of my heart, how my weaknesses have got in the way of my own relationships. And I've done the inner work to really overcome that, and I've experienced shifts. So I don't know whether that answers your question. I can't actually remember your question now.
Doesn't matter. It's beautiful, Ash.
Okay, fine.
No, it does actually, because in a way what you're describing, I mean, it's so beautiful what you're describing. When Baba says there'll be a center on every corner, now is the time, in a way, isn't it? That your flat has become that sanctuary for you to do the inner transformation, and maybe to discover how valuable the family is, which is a wonderful lesson of this time. Yeah.
Definitely.
Moira, Ben, how about for you? What are you seeing?
Yeah, what I just adding to what Ash was saying, I think there's I like about this time that there are no frontiers. There's no more, that the family has become so big, and everybody is our family, and there's like a freedom to connect. The other day, someone in Argentina asked me, can I listen to the Murli in Peru? Can I listen to the Murli in Costa Rica? And I said, why not? You know, wherever you are, it's like the Yagya is so unlimited, and there's nothing that says, you know, you can't access anything or be part of anything. And there's this total freedom to shape your own world and Brahmin world the way you like. Everything is available. Everything, everyone is available. There's so much, and sometimes too much. But like, you know, Ken says something very funny. He says that the condor, you know, this huge bird in the Andes, he's the national bird of Bolivia, national bird of Peru, and he's also very, you know, very prominent in Chile and Argentina. But he doesn't know that he's Bolivian, Peruvian, or anything. He just flies in that unlimited sky over the Andes. And I love that image, because this is the one world. Since I came to Baba, you know, I have always thought of myself as a world citizen. I only became country conscious when I came to the BKs. I always had to be Moira from Argentina. And I never felt I was. But every time we had to introduce ourselves, we became more and more body conscious, country conscious at least. And somehow this is the time that we can drop it all. And it makes so much sense, because we can do a lot more just being together. And well, at least in Latin America, we are doing things way beyond boundaries. Still, there's a little bit, but it's kind of dissolving. It's just like this one energy that flows, and it's so beautiful. I love to see it all as just energy, you know, this energy that is surrounding every place, surrounding the world. It's just amazing. And I also feel that it's this challenge of moving out of this space of my country, my people, this center, that center. It's a wonder. And also it's giving the possibility for people to just, it's a community that is taking shape. People are just coming together with those with whom they have affinity, and they're together, and they help each other, and they share, and they keep each other company. They're all part of the family, whether it's the local family or the global family, but still within that, there is this freedom in which the energy is combined in a very natural way, in a very loving flow. And I really like that about this time. So I feel that this connectedness has been the real gift. And although it's called like social, I don't know what it's called in English, well, this isolation, but it's just been, we're together. And for example, every night, I think we flock into Mohini Ben's space in New York. And sometimes, to be honest, I am so tired, because I get up very early, and by the time she finishes, it's like 9:20 p.m. or 9:15. So by that time, I'm really tired. But I just sit there and I kind of sleep over, but I want to be part of it, because there's something, there's like a warmth about it, which is what Baba calls the power of a gathering. And it's a subtle thing, but it is so obvious as well. It's wonderful. It's magic.
That's fantastic. The couple of questions we're getting, and I'm hearing the beauty of this time for us as Brahmins, both at a personal level in terms of self-transformation, but also as we're crossing we're dissolving the boundaries, and we're connected in a way that we kind of knew we were, but it's so visible now. We're revealing ourselves to each other. You know, seeing people giving classes and seeing, it's like, wow, such beauty in this family and so much. A couple of the questions that we're getting on the chat boxes are about, what about those others that would come to a physical center and meet us and get toli and blessings and a personal interaction and a cup of tea? How will they have a sense of belonging at this time? Any thoughts about that? What are you seeing or feeling emerging? Because it's already happening. I mean, our friends were not able to come to the center, but now they come on Zoom, you know, or they join for more of the things that we're doing on Zoom, because we say, come, you'll enjoy this. And so they come, and so suddenly they're there. You know, so here I'm discovering people are starting to feel part of, and initially really felt that, wow, the BKs keep doing amazing stuff, even though all the other small spiritual groups in our local community have sort of folded up for the summer, for the COVID, right? And there's the BKs pumping things out. So the feeling about us in the community is increasingly good. You know, that's being revealed also, our stamina. But how would they have a sense of belonging? What are you thinking? Maybe Rita.
Yeah, well, just before I answer that one, I'd just like to say back to the experience of the time right now. You know, I have never, what I feel is I feel that we have been given the gift of experiencing exactly what happened in the beginning. When Baba said, you know, there would be, you know, they had their 14 years and that you're going to experience hum so hum, right? It will become again. We are now in that phase of experiencing the bhakti, where we are all together in what feels like an incubator for the birth of this new world, and it's been amazing. But regarding the others, you know, and how and what they're interested in, what I'm seeing is that more and more people are looking toward us to see what is the possibility for the future. And it's because they, many of the ones who've known and trusted us and who have received the blessings, the tolis, the this, the that, you know, that they're recognizing in a different way the offering that's coming from God to them through the BK world. And what I'm seeing is that with all, as you said, I think Moira said, the abundance of what's being offered between the things online, the regular conversations, the classes, and the retreats, that people are feeling the result of the bhakti that we've been doing. They're feeling that power that's coming when they're in the connection with the BK family. So more and more people looking for opportunities to be able to step in and connect in some way, that usually through Zoom right now. But as we begin to open the centers, which, I mean, we're just beginning to open for the BKs actually. So I don't know when we will open here in the States for the public. But I have found the interest in being part of and an interest in feeling a belonging with the BKs just it continues to grow. And it's very, very beautiful. It's very beautiful because they're so open, you know, to learning so much more now than perhaps they were before the virus.
That's lovely. Yes, Rita, thank you. Ash, what are you seeing? What are you thinking?
I think this is a really interesting point. I think the physical center, and particularly what I'm seeing here, is a place where a lot of souls come just to be released from whatever they're going through in the atmosphere. So there's almost two requirements. One is souls come to learn and study, and then, you know, a vast majority of souls actually come just to experience the bathing of Baba's home. And that is a difficult atmosphere to replace with the virtual system. However, where we are in time at the moment, I believe there is a need to extend our reach. We are putting out some fantastic content, but actually it's not reaching far and wide, as far and wide as we need to. And technology will definitely get us to that point for sure. So and also we're reaching an interesting period in this whole yagya where, you know, people can't afford to even donate at the moment as much as they used to. And so we're beginning to see a decline in donations around the world. And so therefore the expansion has to come in a virtual capacity. And something I feel we can do in a very simple way is I'll give you an example here. There are cities that we haven't got centers in. And typically, if you want to learn how to meditate in a city, you will type in meditation followed by the city. And unfortunately, because we haven't got any presence, a physical center, we haven't got a way of touching those souls. And the top cities for meditation hits in the UK at the moment, we haven't got a centre in. Quite a few of them, actually. You'd be very surprised. And so I feel there is a need for souls to be reached in this virtual capacity, almost like have a virtual centre where you can localize what you provide to people there. So when they type in Bristol meditation, Brahma Kumaris ranks up, and somehow a simple page that basically shows that, you know, we're providing virtual sustenance and then supplement that with on-site sustenance on a monthly basis. So maybe entertaining models like that becomes a reality for us as we continue to expand, but have to pay attention that we're limited with our monetary capabilities. But I'm also seeing that souls are taking benefit from retreats, particularly those that, so we ran a retreat two weeks ago for young adults. We couldn't quite mirror the same style as we would do on premise. It's less experiential, but the need for people at the moment was connection and meditation. And I can tell you something, both were satisfied, even though they didn't have a huge amount of time to share amongst each other. The amount of feeling they received in that gathering alone was very serviceable. So it opened my eyes to where souls really are and what the need of the time is for them. Right. We're a different space where, you know, sometimes I feel not necessarily fully connected to these individuals until we do an event like this. Mm-hmm. But I feel there is definitely a space to continue with this model, because many will come, they'll take what they want remotely and off they go. Others may want that repeat visit to the centers and that connection with the atmosphere.
Mm. Yeah. Thank you, Ash. Moira, what are you thinking and seeing?
Well, I was thinking of people who would have normally come to our center, like all the family of friends that we have as BKs, which is huge around the world. But what I'm seeing here in Argentina is that they have made us part of their lives. And like, it's as if they take us home. And people, I'm very surprised how people have reached the point that they now really want to know deeply about our knowledge, to the extent that they listen to the Murli. I'm fascinated. I think there's a new phase for all our friends who have been around the BKs for decades. We have taken so much care of them in so many events. Rita, you know, from the Call of the Time and other groups. But I find that these souls are now ready to take the real benefit of Baba's Murli. And for me, it's like, I ask myself, is it that they're ready, or is it that we're ready? Maybe it's a second, that we're ready to really offer them Baba's message from Baba himself. And I can see how much they will all do because these souls are being nourished in such a way. And I imagine that if, you know, when we're able to receive them in Baba's home, probably they will come. Some of them live quite distant from our center, but like, people are ready to be in little clusters, like little study groups. And in this way, it's a new way of serving, for me at least. I've been in, you know, serving contact souls or friends for so many years, and putting them together into events, whether it's because a senior comes or something's happening, or we put together a retreat. But this is going to them, or bringing them together in small groups, but it's becoming very relevant to have a process. So they stick together, and they again become a community. And what I'm amazed is that they consider themselves their spiritual family. They are really our friends, but they have become to themselves spiritual family. It's very interesting. So it's something quite different, and I can see how these souls will take the message out in a multiplying way. I also agree with Ash that technology will do it. we have everything now online. So we're finding new ways of creating a family life for those people. And I think we have to be very generous with, sharing with them. For example, now is Daddy G's anniversary coming. So who was she? They will never go to Madhuban. They will never have met Daddies. So we have to make this foundation and this yagya alive for them. So as much as Sister Mohini has so generously given it all to us, and it's there for those from the Americas and for those anywhere else, it's on the New York website, like a series of the yagya, the story of each and every daddy, so many details, so beautiful with pictures. And I think we have to offer that to our wider family online now, because people can only surrender to Baba and the yagya. Otherwise, what do they surrender to?
Beautiful. So while the physical doors may be closing, or closed for a time, and I know in many places actually they're closing, like in Rita's place, closing down the smaller locations and consolidating the physical energies in one facility, but still the hearts are getting bigger and more expansive and more giving at the same time. And also, Daddy Janki left us, so we have this super powerful engine pumping from the subtle region. I feel like much of the transformation many of us have experienced during this COVID is, Daddy, pumping down, her vibes for us. So, are we moving into the phase now where we can trust the subtle to make people feel this sense of belonging without us having to be so, hosting, I don't know, not gregarious, but we don't have to host the tea party and pour the tea and do all the physical things to create that sense of belonging, which can be done in the subtle. And that's different than the virtual. That the subtle feeling they get, that we are doing that. What's any final comments on that one? Because I know we're having to leave now in about 3 minutes. It says the little message. So any comments on this idea that now it's the subtle that will be doing the work? Ash?
Yes, absolutely. I feel, I think that retreat we had a couple of weeks ago, if you're able to really create an experience online on a virtual level, but you're invoking subtly Baba's connection and power, nobody else can do that.
Nobody.
And when souls will take that experience from us, it will be our pure vibrations and our connection with Baba that will really uplift them in a virtual world, but because of our subtle connection. And so the cleanliness of our vibrations and the feeling of wanting to serve and uplift is all we need to hold in our hearts.
Beautiful, Ash. Rita, Ben, for you?
There was one time that Baba asked me the question. He asked me, what was the motto of America? And I answered by saying, in God we trust. And he said, trust in God and you will become a trustee. And I think this feeling of trusteeship, as God's instrument, as Baba's instrument, that's all we have to do at this point in time. And that everyone will receive whatever is needed, from that energy.
Trust. Yeah.
Trust that comes from.
Oh, Rita, what a lovely way to end this event, especially the motto of America. I feel like that's just very poignant for us right now. In the subtle, we can be showering energy. That's fantastic. In God we trust. So trust in God and become a trustee, and that's it. Wow.
Yeah.
I think we can end it there. May I say a huge thank you to each of you for sharing so freely of yourselves and just so naturally and so, easily jumping in without knowing where it would go. None of us knew where it would go, but I hope we've covered the main I hope we covered some of the bases anyways around belonging and center and at this time. So I think that Marcelo's typing to me that the link will be shared with people. I know we probably have so much more to say. If I can just have one final word from each of the three of you, and we'll just hold even just 30 seconds of silence together now. And then we will end with one, literally one word from each of the three of you. Moira Ben?
Be real.
Ash?
Trust.
Rita? Oh, we didn't hear Rita.
Love.
Love. Thank you. I will say honor. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Judy, thank you
Om
for
Shanti.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you for holding the space and really
Thanks.
emerging all of this for us as well. So
Best cup of tea I've had in a long time.
yeah, we should be again soon.
Let's do it again soon. Okay.
Sister
Bye,
Moira, Sister
everyone.
Rita,
Ash, lovely
nice
to
to
meet
meet
you.
Thank
you.
you,
Lovely to be with you.
Marcelo.
Marcelo, thank you
Thanks,
so
Judy.
much.
Thank you, Marcelo.
Thanks,
Om
Marcelo.
Shanti.
Translators, Om Shanti, bye
Om
bye.
Shanti, Om Shanti. Thank you, Baba.